Hey guys, it's Vaughn and welcome back to another pregnancy Q&A video. This is actually video 3 that I've done so far this month. So if you haven't seen the first 2, definitely check the description box to check it out. Basically, this is just a month-long series of me answering you guys' pregnancy related questions aside from my regular Sunday vlogs, and also just discussions and things that I want to have with you guys related to this pregnancy. So for today's video, I kind of wanted to dive a little bit more into the autism family planning conversation. I kind of mentioned this in my last pregnancy Q&A video, and I've kind of touched on this before, but not only does an autism diagnosis kind of impact your capacity to have more children, it also impacts the other children. So today I just kind of wanted to chat with you guys about some of the fears and thoughts that I have had around growing my family after an autism diagnosis. Many of you already know that my daughter Ann is on the spectrum. She was diagnosed at 18 months and she is now a 6-year-old living with autism. She is my only child and she does have an older sibling. His name is Cameron and he's 19 years old, but he doesn't live with us, and the age difference is so vast that she's not actually experiencing life with a sibling. So I just wanted to preface for this video that I'm going to be referring to Ann in more of the only child kind of scenario just because of that. For me, I've kind of always had this fear, you guys, of the autism, no autism kind of sibling dynamic. I've always thought about what if, we were to have another child and that child would be neurotypical. How is that going to play out? And this was early on, right? So this was when we were suspecting that Ann had autism to when she got her official diagnosis. I was kind of always thinking about what that looks like in families. And as always, I go straight to the internet, I go straight to YouTube trying to find stuff, and there is not much at all. So I just kind of put that into the category of one of those things that's kind of taboo to talk about because you just really don't find a whole lot of information on there. Let me tell you guys what you can find a ton of. You can find a ton of information about early signs of autism. That stuff's everywhere. People telling you what you need to look for in your child if you suspect that they might be on the spectrum, but you can never find like this really like niched stuff, like the real deep, important, conversations. You can't find any of that stuff. So yeah, I've always kind of thought about like what that would be like. So I did find a couple of families on YouTube who kind of share their autism experiences. They don't focus on the sibling dynamic, but it is present if you really look. I did actually find some information right in the beginning. This was kind of sharing like the dark side of what that could look like for a family. And it was a woman saying that she had 2 sons, really close in age, and one was on the spectrum, one wasn't. And the one that was neurotypical was miserable, right? Kind of like going into an anxiety kind of depression type of mode because he wasn't growing up with the sibling that, he thought he was going to be growing up with. It was not the experience that he was expecting, and that he was comparing himself to other families where they had siblings close in age and they were able to play together and they were able to grow up together and have all these experiences. And in this particular household, the child with autism was level 3, a lot of self-injurious behaviors, a lot like really problematic. The way his symptoms were kind of playing out, he was a little bit of a hazard to like play settings without supervision and stuff like that. So it was quite severe, and it was causing the 2 children to not be able to bond. And at the looks of it, it kind of appeared that the parents hadn't really had a chance to bond with that child either. Now here's a sidebar. I remember I was talking to my sister one day about parents and their inability to bond with their children. And I want to say I was speaking about it in the sense of like the autism conversation. And she was in disbelief. She wouldn't accept the notion that this is something that could possibly happen, that this is actually in many ways a consequence that a lot of families face. For some people, it's difficult to process that there's a parent and a child and then there's no bond. And I was trying to explain to her like, girl, that's pretty much what postpartum depression causes for a lot of people, like that inability to bond with that child. And it's very common for that to take place, not just in the special needs world, but just in general. If a parent is not mentally healthy and they're not present in the moments that they need to be, or if they miss some vital developmental phases with the child due to whatever reasons, right? It's a plethora of reasons, but it can absolutely be the case that a parent did not get a chance to bond with a kid. Absolutely, like that's totally a thing. But she didn't believe it, but like I always say, you can smell a person without kids coming from a mile away. It can definitely happen, okay? It's unfortunate, we hate to see it, but it can definitely happen. So I think with that family, right, taking you guys back to the original conversation, I think with that family, that's what happened, right? The kid was so different that nobody in the house really had an opportunity to bond with that kid, and it was playing out through the relationship with the sibling, and the parents may or may not have been intervening in the proper ways, and it all went bad. And looking at that, that was one of the first bits of content I consumed you know, after getting Ann's diagnosis, and you could just imagine kind of the shock value that had on me, like in terms of already having a fear that things might not go well, and then seeing something like that, I was like, maybe it's not a good idea. You know what I mean? You know, looking back on it, I'm glad I saw that type of content, because it really showed me like the variations in like the mentality of the autism parent, which we'll talk more about a little bit later in this video. But that was just one of the things, right? How people are so different. There are so many different approaches to, you know, having that work for your household, because I came across some other content also, which, you know, showed the absolute opposite, right? There was this video where there was one older sibling, neurotypical, and then there was a younger child on the spectrum. And that older sibling is probably one of the most well-developed in terms of emotional intelligence and empathy kid I've ever seen. And it was simply because that kid was growing up in an environment where there was tons of reward for caring for others. You know, it becomes like a way of life for these kids. And I have seen families where it appears that they found their kind of own way to bond and get along with each other, despite one of the children maybe having special needs. But despite everything that I've seen online, right, let's talk about a real life experience. I had a conversation recently with a mom from Ann's therapy center. You know, I see moms coming and going, you know, dads too, all the time. Sometimes siblings are with them when they're dropping off or picking up. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm seeing this all the time. And this one lady that drops her daughter off, she's the oldest in the family, I want to say. She's the oldest sibling, and there are at least 2 other younger siblings, and they're obviously neurotypical. And I always see them coming and going, and I've just never said anything. But one day when I was leaving out, you know, we kind of sparked up a conversation, because she saw my belly, right? She could tell that I was pregnant, and, you know, she kind of saw some similarities between her situation. And so she just started talking to me about it. And she's like, I just want to let you know, if you have fears about, you know, what this baby will become, if this baby is neurotypical, and then you kind of worry about whether or not they'll get along. Now, this lady has all girls, okay? And she was just saying, like, they get along famously. She said that her daughter that's a little bit younger than the one with autism is one of the best human beings she's ever encountered. And she feels that way because she said her daughter's level of empathy is just through the charts. She is so understanding of her sister's needs, and she loves her just like any other sibling would. The part that was most relatable was her explaining to me that going into it, she had all these fears. And when I tell you, I was just standing in that parking lot about to cry, because I'm like, literally, this is me. Like, this is me right now. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much I don't understand. There's so much I don't know. And I have no idea what the future will hold. And just hearing this woman just reassure me that not only is everything going to be okay, but it's going to be way better than you even expected. That was so on time, y'all. I was so grateful for this woman. I wanted to just fall into her arms. But what we did was just exchange numbers. And, you know, she had asked me if, you know, we wanted to do a play date with the kids all together, that would be great, and that she would be open to it. And y'all, that was so awesome to be offered that, right? To be approached with that opportunity. I just felt so happy, because let me tell you, through the years, right? I have had mixed feelings about connecting with other autism moms. I have got to be honest. It's one thing in chatting with somebody online, and it's a whole nother thing. You guys are both like occupying each other's personal space, and it gets really real, right? The band-aids get pulled off, like things get real. And I've had some really awkward interactions earlier on, you know, learning about Ann's diagnosis and just throwing myself into the community. Y'all, it was like jumping into a freezing cold pool. I was like, oh, no, I didn't know it was like this. I guess what I didn't realize was that there were so many variations of different types of autism moms, right? Different types of autism parents. I thought we were all created equal, right? I thought I would get into this space and everyone would just be on the exact same page. And honey, it is absolutely the opposite. It could not be more of the opposite. But I definitely am in the process of growth and kind of letting a lot of that go. And I'm also, you know, because I've been doing this now for like, you know, 6 years or so with my daughter, I'm kind of learning how to navigate, you know, connecting with other autism moms, how to kind of like vet and figure out which autism moms, you know, are right for me. Because like I said, we're not all created equal. And just in my experience of interacting with different autism parents, I've kind of figured out that there's about a good 4 groups of different types, right? And I'm going to share those groups with you guys because I want to also talk a little bit about where I fit into those categories. So no, this is not something you can Google. This is not an official breakdown of the different types of parents. This is just based on my perspective from what I've seen in the last 6 years. And I'm not just going to put this on the moms, right? These can also be dads as well. But I think for the first group, I would say it's the angry, resentful group. This is the group that blames and shames and focuses heavily on causes and cures. This is the group of people who had a lot of difficulty in the beginning accepting the diagnosis, right? These are people who don't work well with professionals in the field, whether it's the child's pediatrician or one of their therapists. They always want to push back on something. They're very negative. They don't trust science. They don't trust the medical field. They don't trust doctors, right? They want to do it their way. Most likely the parents who have their kids on special diets, they're doing all these little, you know, magical treatments, trying to get their kid to be cured. And they're just very difficult and combative when it comes to people having a positive outlook about the condition, right? The more accepting you are of the condition, they see you as complacent. They want to fight, right? They want to fight against the system that caused this horrible thing to happen to their child. And these are people that are really unpleasant to be around. And I was never one of these parents, so I kind of like to avoid them. The other group of parents that I've noticed that exists is this kind of careless, naive parent. They're a little bit sloppy and they're always unprepared, right? These are the parents where you go out to a family function and then they have their child there and they're like in the corner. You know, these are the parents who don't have the right kind of coping mechanisms for their child, right? These are also the parents that I believe are the ones who have not been able to truly bond with their child, because if you're truly bonded, you know what your child needs in certain settings and you're right there with the solution. If your kid is going to be running around covering their ears, you have their sensory headphones. If your child is a picky eater and you know they're going to be real aggravated by the food selections, you've brought them a lunch. If you know your child, you know, is self-injurious and they like to hit their heads on the wall, they have a helmet. You know, there's a lack of preparedness with this group. And, you know, while I don't have a problem with it, you know, I see this stuff all the time. I don't say anything, but it makes you kind of worry and you're a little sad for the kid because you're like, I think they could be doing more. So in these instances, the parents could be doing more, you know, in terms of supporting and caring for the kid. They're either not motivated, they either don't believe that there's anything more that they could be doing. And also, you know, like I said, there was a lack of bonding during that early development. So these people kind of, they care, but they kind of don't care. Then you have the group of parents who are actually good parents, but they're just more so avoidant when it comes to like society. You know, they give it the middle finger. They're just like, leave us alone. We'll just stay over here with our special circumstances and you guys just don't bother us. These are the parents that don't have any connections with support groups. You know, their kids are not in any kind of programs. They're just like, we'll just stay out the way. These kind of folks also rub me the wrong way, because if your child is ever in the presence of them, they're looking at you like, why do you even bother? You know, like if you're on a plane or something with your special needs kid and that parent is on the plane by themselves, they're looking at you like, why didn't you just leave your kid at home? You knew they had these special needs. Why are they even here? It's a little bit of a problematic parent type there. And then you have the advocate parent, right? The one that just wants to enrich their child's lives. They want to have equality for their children. They want everyone and everywhere to make space for them. They focus on acceptance. They cooperate probably the best out of all the groups that I mentioned with professionals, medical professionals. So these are the people that are going to the parent meetings and the parent education sessions. These are the folks who are talking with the pediatrician, just trying their best at every phase to make their child's life better in some way. These parents offer a lot of support for their child. These are the parents who were able to bond with the child during early development despite the challenges. But these types of parents on the downside have a tendency to be a little overzealous with their children, you know, a little hyper vigilant in social settings, things like that. And these different parent group areas have plenty of overlap, right? You might have an avoidant mixed with a little resentful, angry, an advocate on their good days. Everybody's just trying to navigate the best way they know how. I would say I definitely fall into the parent advocate group with a little touch of avoidant. Sometimes if I get in my mood, you know, it just depends. I just want to say, you know, I'm not a perfect parent. While I want to always be the advocate, right? The one that's always looking to provide the best support and just do everything right. I do sometimes fall into that avoidant category where I'm just like, all right, it's getting too hard out here. I'm tired of peopling, right? We're just gonna retreat. We're not gonna go to that birthday party because I don't want people staring at her. I don't want kids, you know, looking at her funny. We're just gonna stay home and just say forget it. So there are times where I do kind of dabble, but you would never see me being that angry, resentful parent, and you will never see me being that careless, kind of toxic parent. And that's really it, y'all. Those were just the 4 categories that I decided to kind of put together for this video. I'm like, this is what I've observed in this space, you know? And that's just part of the reason that I've been so reluctant to move forward with any type of like personal connections with other autism moms. I've just been kind of sticking to my neurotypical moms and just being the oddball out because it's just been so much variation and it's just really paralyzing and stifling. It makes me not want to speak up. It makes me not want to have conversations because you just never know who you're talking to. Some of these autism parent conversations get really intense. I mean, some of these people are die hard like anti-vax and like die hard about like, you know, how they feel victimized by the medical community and how they feel like there was this greater plan that was put in place to hurt them or their child. And it's just like, it's such an emotional, intense roller coaster. And you want to let people vent and express themselves, but it's hard to like not be able to provide any feedback as to not come off offensive. So I just find myself sometimes in these situations where I'm just sitting there just like silent because I have nothing to add, you know? And so that's why I told you guys, like, I typically like to avoid anything relating to causes and cures because it is just a really highly touchy subject. It comes with a lot of assumptions and implications, and you know, it can be uncomfortable for people. It can be intensely uncomfortable. But like I say, you know, I'm getting to a place where I am, you know, more comfortable stepping outside of my comfort zone, and I kind of know what's out there. You know, I've kind of had a lot of time to like process everything that I've observed, and I am ready, right? I am beyond ready to try again with making some meaningful connections in this community. And so that's kind of where I am now. I was really excited to have been approached by that one lady, you know, at Ann's Therapy Center, and I really want to talk more with her. Like I said, we exchanged phone numbers, hoping to be able to get together, and I want to learn from that family. You know, if this is a family that's thriving beyond the diagnosis and, you know, have grown the family beyond it, I want to talk with them because I want to be like them, you know? I want our family dynamic to be successful. I want us to thrive. Through this journey, I definitely want to share with you guys sort of how we're navigating this. And like I told you guys before, with this pregnancy, I have no expectations. I have no idea. And I think anyone pregnant, right? If you're watching this video right now and you're pregnant, you don't know if you're pregnant with a child that's going to have autism. You really don't know. So all you can do is the best you can. And I definitely want to be fair to this pregnancy in the same way that I was fair when I was pregnant with Ann, not have any expectations and not put too much pressure on, you know, what the child will become one way or another. If the baby happens to be on the spectrum, we will address it with the same care that we did with Ann. If the baby happens to not have autism, we will move forward in that direction. But one thing that I don't want to do is, and I'm very serious about this one, you guys, I do not want to be watching my baby like a hawk looking for early signs of autism. I'm telling y'all, that's the quickest way to get blocked around here. I'm just gonna be honest. Zero tolerance with it, right? You can think whatever you wanna think, but once we start having those out loud, you know, textual conversations, I gotta get rid of you because I don't want that kind of energy around, you know, this new baby. I just can't have it. I realize people are curious. I realize you guys are really intuitive and you have your ideas, but you gotta respect that boundary. I was following this girl on Instagram, this really popular like autism mom. She had another baby after her son with the diagnosis, and she would talk openly with her audience about like watching her child like a hawk, is how she put it, looking for early signs of autism, like and sharing this with her audience and like being like, you know, she mumbled 2 words today, so we're gonna keep our fingers crossed and we're gonna keep an eye on it over the next couple months to see if these words stay. And I was just like, I had to unfollow her. Because see, I'm not the follower who's gonna comment and I need to chastise this person, I need to try to change them. I do not do that. I'm just gonna quietly walk away. But I was like, there's no way I can sit here and watch this, like, because I don't agree with it. And, you know, no shade to anyone out there that feels like this is their responsibility going forward with their next child. Do you? I'm just telling you what I'm not gonna be able to do. I can't see myself doing that. It seems so unfair. And it taints the bonding, right? It taints the early experience. I just want to have the experience. You know, years will go by and you'll look back and you'll be like, what happened to the infant phase? Well, you wasted it worrying about autism. You know, like that's the part about it that I don't want to happen. You know, just because a mom has a child with autism doesn't make her like this autism vessel, you know, going forward with any other pregnancy. Like, and I really just don't like that stigma. So while I appreciated that woman on Instagram for sharing her experiences, and I'm pretty sure she was doing what was best for her mental, I just knew that, geez, like there's no way I would be able to, you know, have that kind of mindset trying to raise my baby. You know, no child should have to live in their sibling's shadow, right? I think that that's very toxic. So I'm just hoping that you guys don't intend on doing that. And I know that I'd want to work on not doing that, right? Because it can be tempting to be like, I wonder, you know, like, is this or that, you know, but I just want to focus on like not doing that. So hopefully you guys won't do that. Hopefully you'll give this baby a chance to be its own individual. And if that's the case, I would love to share those experiences with you guys. We intend to be guided through the developmental process with the baby's pediatrician, just like we did with Ann. And by the way, we're using the same pediatrician that we used with Ann. So I'm very excited about that. Dr. Kang, okay, he's my favorite. He is so good at what he does. This is a man who has at least 3 children. He knows his stuff. So I'm so happy that we're going to be able to work with the same pediatrician. I feel like that also gives me reassurance as an autism mom, knowing that I'll have a pediatrician there who's going to be able to recognize, you know, deficits or things that we should be concerned about. I want someone that's going to ring the alarm, you know, raise their hand and say, hey, I noticed something. That's what I want. That's what you want. That's what every parent should want. Girl, not me having to change the battery again. I can never get through these chats on one full charge because I'm just talking too much. But anyway, back to what I was saying. What was I saying? So yeah, that takes me into my last and final discussion topic. Is I wanted to share with you guys that through all of this, I am realizing that the more I envision what life will be like if this child is neurotypical, the more I'm realizing that I am approaching this thing as a brand new parent. Take a moment to let that process, right? I'm on baby number 2, but I'm gonna be a brand new parent. And that is because I've only had experience raising, you know, my daughter, right? The majority of my experience raising her has not been typical. The vast majority of our experiences, right? So there's so much about childhood development and parenting from a neurotypical perspective that I know nothing about, is what I'm trying to explain to y'all, okay? And I know that I know nothing about it because all I have to do is look at the kids around me, my friends' kids, my sister's kids, you know, whatever. And I can just see that the experiences that they're going through, especially, you know, hitting age 5, things change drastically. They're tackling issues that we haven't even scratched the surface on, you know. I've never had a conversation with my child, right? So me getting to know her has been a lot of me understanding and being more in tune with her temperament, her facial expressions, her body language. And in a lot of ways, you know, that's worked for us. I'm not complaining. What I'm saying is that when you start to introduce language into the developmental process, it's a whole different world, right? I've had friends, you know, share funny stories with me about things that they couldn't believe their kids said, that, you know, they don't know where they got it from and all this stuff. I've never experienced that. Even when it comes to discipline, you know, kids misbehaving, saying inappropriate things, doing inappropriate things on, you know, seemingly on purpose and all these kind of things. I've never experienced that. In a lot of ways, right, we also have not been able to teach our daughter very many things, right? There are ways of, you know, getting some things through to her, but for the most part, right, I'm not able to just sit down and just open up a lesson and say, we're just gonna do this, you know? And in me saying this, I'm not saying that it's a better or worse outcome. I'm just saying it's different. And so as we approach this new thing, it's going to be extremely new. Like where, you know, some other folks are going from 1 to 2 kids, they're experiencing a different type of newness. I am experiencing like being a brand new mom. And I just feel like it's going to be a little bit different. And I'm preparing myself in many ways. You know, I am open to the brand new experience. I'm also a lot more open now to connecting with other autism moms, like I was kind of talking about, more than ever, right? Because there was one point where I was just like, I'm done. Like I completely shut down, right? Don't need it, don't want it. Y'all stay over there, I'm gonna stay over here, you know? But now I'm a lot more open to opening myself up to new experiences and just kind of, you know, I've had some time to really, you know, observe the landscape and see what's all out there. And I feel like, you know, I needed that reflection time. So now I can like jump back into it more prepared and more open and more willing, because it's not impossible. I just have to find my people. And I am so curious and I want to learn as much as I can about the sibling dynamics. I want to learn about, you know, what it means as a parent, you know, doing this thing again, but going into it with experience, but no knowledge, right? There's so much experience that I have with caring for my child and being a mother, but because the circumstances were so unique, it's almost as though I have no experience going into this thing if this child happens to be neurotypical. Those are just my thoughts. I wanted to just share them with you guys. I don't know, this was like a random pregnancy Q&A, but I know some of you guys did have that question, so it's still me answering your question. If you guys have some insight or want to share your thoughts, please feel free to do so in the comments. I will be interacting and responding, keeping in mind that I do rely a lot on you guys for connectivity through this, because like I said, my family is a non-factor when it comes to this conversation. They know nothing and they really ain't trying to know. I mean, I'm just saying, nobody's doing the research and like trying to better understand. People are just waiting for me to tell them what to think, and I don't know what to think. So I appreciate being able to have this community here with you guys and be able to have this kind of dialogue, and I know a lot of you can relate, and I appreciate and love you guys so much. And we have one more pregnancy Q&A video on the calendar. That one will be going up next week, so definitely come back and stay tuned for that one. I think in that last video I should have a little bit more information on my birth plan and things of that nature, so I want to talk to you guys about that. Maybe share my hospital bag, my final plans, you know, before the hospital and all that stuff, and then maybe we'll have a better idea of the nursery at that time that I can most likely share. So definitely come back next week. Drop your questions and comments below, and I will talk to you guys in my next one. Mwah! Bye!